Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. A lot of schools closing with the COVID. Stephen Colbert said, I long for the good old days when our kids could safely go to school to butt-chug Tide Pods. Parents need emergency child care help now. I'm calling on the federal government to release our strategic reserve of mothers-in-law. You know their motto. I see you're too busy to empty the bathroom trash can. I sent that one to my wife. Jimmy Fallon. He said, I saw that because of a huge winter storm, a 50-mile stretch of I-95 in Virginia was shut down and drivers were stranded on the interstate for more than 24 hours. Meanwhile, there was a dad sitting there like, if I could just get over the one lane, that's me. Fallon, the only happy person was the cab driver whose fare got up to $14 million. Got some wacky stories today. None of these I saw coming. From the Daily Dot, a years-old comedy sketch in which Betty White jokes about drinking the blood of a virgin has conspiracy theorists convinced that the deceased Hollywood icon was a member of the satanic elite. Yes, was Betty White part of the satanic elite? Let's dive into this. In a comedy sketch called Betty White's Secret to Staying Youthful, Betty White had joked, people always ask me how I stay so youthful. I tell them I eat well, get plenty of rest, and every third Sunday I drink the blood of a virgin, and these days they're getting harder and harder to find. Conspiracy theorists have alleged that the death was suspicious given that Betty White died 17 days before her 100th birthday. Q is the 17th letter of the alphabet. Could be a reference to QAnon. The clip was shared on Instagram. Some claimed that White was merely using humor to hide her true involvement in drinking blood. One user said, joke or not, you have to question anyone in Hollywood who makes jokes about child sacrifice. You gotta wonder how she stayed so youthful while remaining one of the biggest stars in pedowood. Let's just leave that there. Then there's Jon Stewart. This from the Hollywood Reporter. Jon Stewart has accused J.K. Rowling of dealing in anti-Semitic tropes in the Harry Potter franchise. Jon Stewart has called out Harry Potter's goblin banker characters as resembling Jewish caricatures. On his podcast, Jon Stewart said, here's how you know Jews are still where they are. Talking to people, here's what I say. Have you ever seen a Harry Potter movie? Have you ever seen the scenes in Gringotts Bank? Do you know what those folks who run the bank are? Jews. Stewart pointed out that the goblins resemble an illustration in a 1903 anti-Semitic book called The Protocols of the Elders of Zion. Stewart said, and those people are like, oh, that drawing's from Harry Potter. And you're like, no, that's a caricature of a Jew from an anti-Semitic piece of literature. J.K. Rowling was like, can we get these guys to run our bank? It's a wizarding world. We can ride dragons. You could have a pet owl, but who should run the bank? Jews. But what if the teeth were sharper? Stewart continued, it was one of those things where I saw it on screen and I was expecting the crowd to be like, holy crap, Rowling did not in a wizarding world just throw Jews out there to run like the effing underground bank. And everybody was like, wizards. It was so weird. This is the weirdest thing to me. Second day in a row, I finished editing the podcast and all I'm doing is I'm crunching the file. So after you record, it takes, 2-3 minutes for the file to render and I export it and I upload it. And while I do that, I start playing on my phone. And I see this story from Variety. Jon Stewart clarifies Harry Potter comments. Headline, I do not think J.K. Rowling is anti-Semitic. From Variety, Jon Stewart took to social media to correct a viral news story read on some comedy podcast about his feelings towards the depiction of goblins in J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter franchise. Jon Stewart said, I do not think J.K. Rowling is anti-Semitic. I did not accuse her of being anti-Semitic. I do not think the Harry Potter movies are anti-Semitic. I really love the Harry Potter movies, probably too much for a gentleman of my considerable age. I cannot stress this enough. I am not accusing J.K. Rowling of being anti-Semitic. She need not answer any of it. I don't want the Harry Potter movies censored in any way. It was a lighthearted conversation. Get an effing grip. He clarified that his original discussion about the goblins was a lighthearted conversation amongst colleagues and chums about what it was like watching the Harry Potter movies as a Jewish man. So that's it for that controversy for now, anyway. Third topic of the day. From The Verge, Netflix sent recruiters talking points on how to avoid discussing Dave Chappelle's special The Closer with job candidates. Okay? The memo tells members of the talent acquisition team not to comment on Dave Chappelle's stand-up set. The memo reads, find a way to respectfully end and move on from the topic. If you're pressed further on the topic in areas not covered in the talking points, and we have the talking points, I will share them in a second, in a section titled The Closer and Employees, Netflix encourages recruiters to state We value our trans colleagues and allies and understand the deep hurt that's been caused. We respect the decision of any employee who chose to walk out and recognize we have much more work to do both within Netflix and in our content. Now that's really interesting there, right? As The Verge points out, the memo hints at concerns Netflix might have had regarding its ability to hire in the wake of the Dave Chappelle controversy. While the issue did not translate into a business problem for the company in terms of cancellations, it appears some execs worried it could dissuade talent from wanting to join the company. In the memo, Netflix told recruiters to respond to questions about the termination by saying, "We have let go of an employee for sharing confidential, commercially sensitive information outside the company. We understand they may have been motivated by disappointment and hurt with Netflix, but maintaining a culture of trust and transparency is core to our company." If pressed, recruiters should add, "This employee was the only person to access this specific information and admitted to sharing confidential information externally. Here are some of the talking points from the closer and employees. Talking point 1, I can't comment on the closer. 2, we value our trans colleagues and allies and understand the deep hurt that's been caused. And if needed, the recruiter can throw this one out there. The employee was the only person to access this specific information and admitted sharing confidential information externally. Also, if needed, CEO Ted Sarandos addressed the situation on 10/19/21 in a series of interviews." Whew. Some leadoff topics today. How about Beavis and Butthead? They're coming back for some reason. Mike Judge tweeted, "Beavis and Butthead will be returning this year with a brand new movie and more on Paramount Plus. No exact date, but soon. They need some time to get back in shape." You probably have not seen Toast of Tinseltown yet, unless you're in London like I must be. I didn't watch it yet. I was sightseeing all day, but I'm planning on watching it tonight here in London. There was a surprised guest appearance in episode 1. I'm going to spoil it. I'll give you 3 seconds. Hit the 30-second skip button. I'll only say the person's name once. Ready? Spoiler coming up. Larry David played a character called Sola Miranek. Sola is the author of a book putting forward a new JFK conspiracy. On the show, Stephen Toast was reading the audiobook version. The author character appeared via Zoom to direct proceedings, which meant the guest star got to say the catchphrase, "Yes, I can hear you, Clem Fandango." That's so awesome. The author took issue with Toast's pronunciation of the very first word of the book, "the," and pointed out, "The idea of an English actor reading this came from my publisher, not from me. I need to make that totally clear. I hated the idea." This morning on the treadmill, I was listening to an episode of Joe Rogan with Gilbert Gottfried. It came out in the summer. I just finally got around to it this morning. It was fascinating to me. So I'm a fan of Gilbert's podcast, but on Gilbert's podcast, he has a co-host that keeps him on track. This was Gilbert without a co-host to keep him on track. And you'll hear this on Gilbert's own podcast. He is paying no attention at all to the other side of the conversation. I've said this before. You could be a guest on Gilbert's podcast and be like, "Yeah, and it was just the worst day of my life. My entire family died in that fire. And you were in a movie with Charles Grodin in 1978. Is that right?" And it's like, did you not hear what the person just said? So poor Joe Rogan is trying to have a conversation with Gilbert, and Rogan would ask a question, and Gilbert would answer something sort of related to the question, or perhaps from 3 questions ago, or Rogan would make a point and be like, "The sky's not really that blue." And Gilbert would be like, "Yeah, it really is blue. You're right." And like, are you not listening to Joe Rogan? Anyway, check that out if you're bored. Gilbert Gottfried on Joe Rogan's podcast sometime in the summer. I don't know too much about this next story other than what I'm about to tell you from the Sydney Morning Herald, your home for comedy news. Comedian Tom Ballard has joined the boycott of the Sydney Festival. Apparently, a lot of comedians and performers are boycotting the Sydney Festival, which starts today. Why are they boycotting? Over funding from the Embassy of Israel. Ballard says, "I love the festival and I love telling jokes, but standing up for human rights and standing against a system of apartheid is more important. I respectfully ask that the Sydney Festival review its decision and return the funding in question, and I call on other artists to consider joining this boycott too." The festival, again opens today, has been hit with a wave of withdrawals over its decision to accept $20,000 from the embassy to stage Sydney Dance Company performances of Israeli choreographer Ohad Naharin's work Decadence at the Opera House. Now, $20,000 Australian, as I record this on the afternoon of the 5th, is $14,530. A coalition representing Sydney's Arab community had earlier written the festival board, saying the partnership with Israel made the event unsafe for people of Arab background. Festival chair David Kirk issued a statement saying, There had been meetings with concerned groups, but all funding agreements would be honored and performances of decadence would proceed. At the same time, the board has also determined it will review its practices in relation to funding from foreign governments-related parties. We respect the right of any artist to withdraw from the festival and hope they will feel able to participate in future festivals. Bill Engvall spoke to golf.com, making me wish I hadn't wasted the Your Home for Comedy news joke on Sydney Morning Herald, but I did. He told a story about playing Augusta National. His golfing partner, St. Louis Cardinals legend Ozzie Smith, not bad. They got to the iconic par 3 12th hole. Bill Engvall says, it's the par 3, and my caddy says, let's hit a 6-iron. I say, okay, I'm at Augusta. I'm not even thinking about golf, really, which sounds weird, but it's so beautiful. And I hit this ball, and I swear, as soon as it left the club, he goes, oh, man. And I'm like, what? He goes, that's tracking. That is tracking. And I'm watching it, and it hits the green, and he says, there it goes, there it goes. It hits the pin and rolls 45 feet off down into the creek. That's how quick the greens were. It hit on the green and rolled and hit the pin square and kicked it off. If I would have gotten a hole-in-one on that hole, I would have quit golf. And from Vulture, they had taken a look at 22 comedians you should know. One of them is Lacey Mosley. They asked Lacey if there were a 90s-style sitcom built around you, etc., etc. It would be called Meter Maid. It would follow me ruining people's days in my hater job. I got a lot of tickets, and I'd love to be on the other side. My catchphrase would be, I already started writing the ticket. Who are some of your favorite comedians? Keita Brunson always has me in stitches. She's effortlessly hilarious in this chic way I really admire. Bowen Yang, his mind is like a machine. He does not miss. And I also love Mark Phillips. He makes the best sketches online right now. I will watch him yell at anyone about anything. Best and worst comedy advice? Best. An acting teacher in college told her, every moment you get to perform in front of people, whether it be an audition or a show, is an opportunity to give people joy. Worst, I took one of those scam, meet a commercial casting director if you pay money workshops, and a white woman told me my sassiness is out of style and people are looking for more variety from black actors. I was being myself, and it made me shy away from what makes me great for a while. Be yourself. And what is Lacey's goal? I really want to be a Marvel villain. They have the best fits, and they usually get some jokes off. I want to be taken seriously wearing plastic. I'm not ashamed of that. And that is your comedy news for today. Follow this show on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Good Pods, Pandora, wherever you get your shows. See you tomorrow.